Is this the best new bourbon for $50 or less? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So every once in a while, a new bottle hits shelves at an affordable price and ends up being totally awesome. I love it when that happens. I'm sure you do too. I believe that's the case here with Green River Full Proof. So as you can see, I've already made quite the dent in this bottle. I actually took it on a recent vacation with me before I had the opportunity to review it and just loved digging into it. So even though I've had quite a bit of it and have kind of formed an opinion, I figured it was a worthy contender, a worthy bottle to sit down and do a thorough review and let you know what I taste and what the value of this whiskey is. So in terms of the stats here, it's 117.3 proof. That is particular to this batch. That will vary over time. The distillery has told us they will be different proof points. It's $50, so very affordable. Great price point for something of this high proof. Their other products, the wheated bourbon, the standard bourbon, the rye, they're all around $35, which is a great price point too. So kudos to Green River for kind of holding the line on affordable, good whiskey. And then age-wise, not disclosed, but the distillery does say that it's a blend of 5 to 7 year old stocks. So if we can trust that, I think we can. That sounds pretty solid as well. But of course the proof is in the actual whiskey itself and what it noses like, what it tastes like, and what the full experience is here. So let's dive in and see what this whiskey has to offer. So on the nose. Okay, so I know it sounds so standard, but vanilla and brown sugar / caramel. I think it's important that, those notes are very standard, but it's good to acknowledge that saying them, vanilla and caramel, while it's always probably gonna be true to some degree, you want it to be true. A good bourbon that's well put together should have vanilla and caramel. If it doesn't, you might know that you're in some weird territory, but it's got that as the backbone here. What it layers in is cherry, a bright, nice, juicy red cherry. Chocolate, which is nice. Like a milk chocolate, not like a dark chocolate too much. And spice. It's definitely, there's a little ethanol because it is higher proof, so definitely there. But there's also oak spice, and what I would characterize more as like a rye spice, a little kick of a rye dose because of the heftier amount of rye in the mash bill. But there is a little ethanol here too, and slight youthfulness there, which I don't think is necessarily a down note or a turnoff. It just is part of the presence of this thing. All right, let's dive in on the palate. Cheers. Wow. Yeah, it's really good. Raspberry jam, chocolate, cherry, vanilla. It's got really good vanilla, and it's that raspberry, bright red cherry, juicy red fruit that I feel like gives this thing an extra layer of depth to it. And then you've got your vanilla caramel, oak, a little bit of oak as well. It is powerful, it's spicy. I get a rye kick on the back end and I can feel the heat, little touch of ethanol and alcohol presence as well. So that carried through from the nose. Doesn't disqualify this from being a great offering, but it is there. But I'm really digging that raspberry cherry kind of jam-like quality. All right, let's dive in for a second sip. Cheers. So on that sip, chocolate, cinnamon, and more oak kind of jumped up for me. So less of the cherry, less of the raspberry jam, a little bit more of that chocolate. It is even a little bitter or tannic, especially toward the back end of the palate. The finish is nice and long lasting at least, but it tends maybe a little bitter. But overall, this has a ton of sweetness up front and in the mid palate. All right, let's dive in for a third sip here. We'll really think about that finish and the whiskey overall. Cheers. Wow, new layer came through there. I don't know if it's apple or peach, something a little lighter and a little more tart in the fruit category. Really interesting. Good dose of chocolate on that as well. And I noticed maybe like a honey note as well. The finish is, I would put on either the medium long or the shorter end of long. In terms of the flavor punch, I still get some of that cherry jam and chocolate sticking around for a while. That's great. Primarily though, I get a heat experience, which is mostly like a cinnamon red hot, lingering spice, some rye spice, but also just this whiskey has heat to it. It has a little bit of ethanol and proof punch. Overall, I think this is really, really good whiskey for a very affordable price. I think this is one of the better $50 whiskeys I've tasted this year, maybe in the past couple of years. The thing that I think maybe holds it back a little bit is just slight touch of ethanol and youthfulness that I can detect, and the proof is higher. It maybe drinks a little hotter, I think, than the proof point for me at least. Makes me curious though. Green River, if this is 5 to 7 year old stuff, what happens when it's 8-year-old stuff? What happens when it's 10-year-old stuff? I can see this being some of the best whiskey on the market. It's really, really good. Okay, I know I've had a little bit of a glowing endorsement here. Maybe you've tried this one too. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this bottle? Do you think it's as good as maybe I'm making it seem? I do think, again, the youthfulness is kind of the one note here, keeping it from being truly spectacular. But I'm interested to see where this goes in the future. While you're at it, please consider hitting the like button on this video. That's what gets it out to the most people. And then also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Would love to have you aboard for the journey. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.